This film was delightfully, as somebody asked me to describe it, I said it's one part Frankenstein, one part Baron Munchausen,
You
one
ought to be
part My
in
Fair Lady.
pictures. You're wonderful to see. You ought to be in pictures all the
My number
while.
three.
You would be
This is the film that I watched with
alright.
my grown children, and I went in thinking I'm not going to like this much, and it ended up being my number three best film. Poor Things with
Oh right,
Emma
yeah.
Stone. I
Hold
just
on.
thought,
Well, actually, you can, it's my number two, so let's just talk
okay,
about it.
we'll merge them together.
Yeah.
My three, your number two. This film was delightfully, as somebody asked me to describe it, I said it's one part Frankenstein, one part Baron Munchausen, one part My Fair Lady. Put that all together, and you've got this visually stunning, surreal story of what it means to be human. And help me out, James. The director of the film is.
Yorgos Lanthimos.
Thank you. Pronunciations is not my forte, so I'll defer that to you. But the color palette he uses and the it was visually, it was steampunky.
Mm,
You couldn't quite place it in any particular era. Yeah, definitely maybe 19th century, but at times 20th century. The color palettes, as I mentioned, were just from the initial bright blue to black and white to there's just a palette of like Bob Ross painting colors was again visually stunning. Acting wise, one of the things I found interesting was William Dafoe's character is kind of the Dr. Frankenstein.
mm.
I would have thought it would have been more macabre, more quasi-evil, and they went in such a wonderful direction. He actually is a very noble, albeit eccentric person. He
Right.
means the best. I would have thought just seeing this movie on the premise, he's going to be some weird, twisted, psychosexual pervert thing.
Yeah, right.
And another great thing about this film is it kind of subverts expectations. Is there a lot of sex in this film? Is there a lot of sexual tensions and sexual, endeavors?
Exploration.
Yes.
Yeah.
Explorations, great term. But it doesn't happen with William Dafoe's character. If
No.
anything, he is distinctly platonic in this. And it was wonderfully weird, wonderfully witty. Mark Ruffalo's character was just, I think he's another uh, Oscar nominee this year for his probably supporting actor role.
I expect so, yes.
Yeah. It's your number two. What's your
It's my
thoughts
number
on
two.
it?
I thought it was absolutely fabulous for all the reasons that you've said. Yeah, visually just you know gregarious and resplendent and inventive. Like you said, I think it was great that you're saying like it's part Frankenstein, part My Fair Lady. Totally agree with Munchausen in there in sort of this
Yeah.
sort of overly exoticized um, representation of sort of Europe, just as
Yes.
this sort of
Yeah.
decadent other sort of
Yeah.
wonderland kind of thing. I was also sort of pleasantly surprised that Defoe's character wasn't, didn't create this woman as a sex toy,
Yeah,
essentially.
yeah, yeah. Which would have been easy to go that route,
Right. He had
and
far more sort of noble ideas,
intentions. Yeah.
intentions for her. I thought the script by what's his name? Tony McNamara was fabulous. He had worked with Lanthimos before on The Favorite. He had also written
Hmm.
the TV show The Great, which I've not seen, but by all accounts
Hmm.
is in a similar vein. Where
Hmm.
so there's lots of talk of sex and debauchery and lots of brilliantly archaic swearing and what have you. Yes, there's a lot of sex in it, or as it's referred to in the script, furious jumping, which is one of my
Yes. Yeah.
favorite phrases of the year. And and you have to acknowledge there's also sort of a very strong, prominent sort of feminist perspective on it, because
Very much so.
one of the enduring sort of themes of it is that this young woman who has died and been brought back to life sort of inhumanely and thrust upon the world, who doesn't understand anything, her fresh untarnished perspective on life sort of calls out the patriarchy and all of these sort
Hmm.
of assumed roles for women in, I think it's
Hmm.
supposed to be kind of Victorian England.
Well, yeah.
um and does so with great sort of wit and candor. And I thought that all of that was
Yeah.
incredibly good
And
stuff. And Emma Stone is fabulous in the lead role, and
mhm.
yeah, I loved it. I loved it.
Yeah, yeah, not even calling out just patriarchy, but economic disparity. I love the whole
Absolutely.
scene where she sees, wait, we have all this money and there's poor people with no food. Why don't we just give them food and give them money and we can all like just natural socialism. Let's just
Sure.
and Mark Ruffalo's going, whoa, 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 the typical response of yes, but not today,
Mm.
Uh
And yeah, Ruffalo, you've never really seen him do anything like this before. He's always far more sort of grounded and serious in his roles, quite more intense. And here he's a buffoon. He's a
yeah,
bounder
yeah,
and a cad and a buffoon, and he's clearly having an absolute riot doing it. And he's
yeah,
he's wonderful.
yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was great. And if I'm completely honest, this could have easily been my number one. It was a real kind of coin toss between this and my number one, but I eventually
Went
settled for
with
the order that I
okay.
did.
Okay. I was going to say one other thing too is for as much sex as there is in this film, I found it a refreshingly unsexualized type movie in that it lacked eroticism. It
Mm.
it yes, there was a lot of sex, but it was more in a perfunctory narrative in the story rather than trying to excite my emotions,
Oh, sure.
physically, sexually. It was done in such a way that if I'm someone who doesn't like a lot of sex I always find it just cheapens often. It's thrown in because it's supposed to.
Mm.
I thought this is so part of the narrative in
You
such
ought to be in
uh, a
pictures.
well-structured
You're
way.
wonderful to see. You ought to be in pictures. Oh, what a hit you would be.